So she appreciated that. Page 91, the Town Walker. The rot started with the washing and it rapidly increased. When Liesel accompanied Rosa Huberman on her deliveries across Molking, one of her customers, Ernst Vogel, informed them that he could no longer afford to have his washing and ironing done. The times, he excused himself. What can I say? They're getting harder. The war is making things tight. He looked at the girl. I'm sure you get an allowance for keeping the little one, don't you? To Liesel's dismay, Mamma was speechless. An empty bag was at her side. Come on, Liesel. It was not said. It was pulled along rough-handed. Vogel called out from his front step. He was perhaps 5'9", and his greasy scraps of hair swung lifelessly across his forehead. I'm sorry, Frau Huberman. Liesel waved at him. He waved back. Mama castigated. Okay, so she just lost a client. That's not good during this time, right? Because they don't have a lot of money as it is. So now she lost one of her clients. And this is going to continue to happen because the times are tough because of the war. Don't wave to that arschlock, she said. Now hurry up. That night when Liesel had a bath, Mama scrubbed her especially hard, muttering the whole time about the Vogel sockerel and imitating him at 2-minute intervals. You must get an allowance for the girl. She berated Liesel's naked chest as she scrubbed away. You're not worth that much, Selmach. You're not making me rich, you know. Liesel sat there and took it. Not more than a week after that particular incident, Rosa hauled her into the kitchen. Right, Liesel. She sat her down at the table. Since you spend half your time on the street playing soccer, you can make yourself useful out there, for a change. Liesel watched only her own hands. What is it, Mama? From now on, you're going to pick up and deliver the washing for me. Those rich people are less likely to fire you, or fire us, if you are the one standing in front of them. If they ask you where I am, tell them I'm sick, and look sad when you tell them. You're skinny and pale enough to get their pity. Herr Vogel didn't pity me. Well, her agitation was obvious. The others might, so don't argue. Yes, Mama. For a moment it appeared that her foster mother would comfort her or pat her on the shoulder. Good girl, Liesel, good girl. Pat, pat, pat. She did no such thing. Instead, Rosa Huberman stood up, selected a wooden spoon, and held it under Liesel's nose. It was a necessity as far as she was concerned. When you're out on that street, you take a bag to each place and you bring it straight home, with the money, even though it's next to nothing. No going to Papa if he's actually working for once. No mucking around that little soccer Rudy Steiner. Straight home. Yes, Mama. And when you hold that bag, you hold it properly. You don't swing it, drop it, crease it, or throw it over your shoulder. Yes, Mama. Yes, Mama. Rosa Huberman was a great imitator and a fervent one. You'd better not so much. I'll find out if you do. You know that, don't you? Yes, Mama. Saying those 2 words was often the best way to survive, as was doing what she was told, and from there Liesel walked the streets of Molking, from the poor end to the rich, picking up and delivering the washing. At first it was a solitary job, which she never complained about. After all, the very first time she took the sack through town, she turned the corner onto Munich Street, looked both ways, and gave it one enormous swing, a whole revolution, and then checked the contents inside. Thankfully, there were no creases, no wrinkles, just a smile and a promise never to swing it again. Overall, Liesel enjoyed it. There was no share of pay, but she was out of the house and walking the streets without Mama was heaven in itself. No finger pointing or cursing, no people staring at them as she was sworn at for holding the bag wrong. Nothing but serenity. She came to like the people too. The Falfa Hervers inspecting the clothes and saying, yeah. Liesel imagined that they did everything twice. Gentle Helena Schmidt handing the money over with an architect curl of the hand. The Weingartners, whose bent-whiskered cat always answered the door with them. Little Goebbels, that's what they called him, after Hitler's right-hand man. And Frau Hermann, the mayor's wife, standing fluffy-haired and shivering in her enormous, cold-aired doorway, always silent, always alone, no words, not one. Okay? So remember that description of Frau Hermann, the mayor's wife. So her name is Ilse Hermann, standing fluffy-haired and shivering in her enormous cold-aired doorway. Okay, it's important, that description. Sometimes Rudy came along. How much money do you have there? He asked one afternoon. It was nearly dark, and they were walking into Hemmel Street, past the shop. You've heard about Frau Diller, haven't you? They say she's got candy hidden somewhere, and for the right price. Don't even think about it. Liesel, as always, was gripping the money hard. It's not so bad for you. You don't have to face my Mama. Rudy shrugged. It was worth a try. In the middle of January, schoolwork turned its attention to letter writing. After learning the basics, each student was to write 2 letters, one to a friend and one to somebody in another class. Liesel's letter from Rudy went like this. Dear Selmach, are you still as useless at soccer as you were the last time we played? I hope so. That means I can run past you again, just like Jesse Owens at the Olympics. When Sister Maria found it, she asked him a question, very amiably. Sister Maria's offer. Do you feel like visiting the corridor, Mr. Steiner? Needless to say, Rudy answered in the negative, and the paper was torn up, and he started again. The second attempt was written to someone named Liesel and inquired as to what her hobbies might be. At home, while completing a letter for homework, Liesel decided that writing to Rudy or some other sock girl was actually ridiculous. It meant nothing. As she wrote in the basement, she spoke over to Papa, who was repainting the wall again. Both he and the paint fumes turned around. Now this was the roughest form of German person can speak, but it was spoken with an air of absolute pleasantness. Yeah, what? Would I be able to write a letter to Mama? A pause. What do you want to write a letter to her for? You have to put up with her every day. Papa was schmuzzling, a sly smile. Isn't that bad enough? Not that, Mama, she swallowed. Oh, Papa returned to the wall and continued painting. Well, I guess so. You could send it to what's-her-name, the one who brought you here, and visited us those few times. From the foster people? Frau Heinrich. That's right. Send it to her. Maybe she can send it on to your mother. Even at that time, he sounded unconvincing, as if he wasn't telling Liesel something. Word of her mother had also been tight-lipped on Frau Heinrich's brief visits. Instead of asking him what was wrong, Liesel began writing immediately, choosing to ignore the sense of foreboding that was quick to accumulate inside her. It took 3 hours and 6 drafts to perfect the letter, telling her mother all about Molking, her papa and his accordion, the strange but true ways of Rudy Steiner, and the exploits of Rosa Huberman. She also explained how proud she was that she could now read and write a little. The next day, she posted it to Frau Dillers with a stamp from the kitchen drawer, and she began to wait. The night she wrote the letter, she overheard a conversation between Hans and Rosa. What's she doing writing to her mother? Mama was saying. Her voice was surprisingly calm and caring. As you can imagine, this worried the girl a great deal. She'd have preferred to hear them arguing, whispering adults, hardly inspired confidence. Does that make sense? Whispering adults, when people are whispering, it doesn't inspire confidence in you. Okay, sometimes if you just hear them arguing, it seems a little bit better. She asked me, Papa answered, and I couldn't say no. How could I? Jesus, Mary and Joseph, again with a whisper. She should just forget her. Who knows where she is? Who knows what they've done to her? In bed, Liesel hugged herself tight. She balled herself up. She thought of her mother and repeated Rosa Huberman's questions. Where was she? What had they done to her? And once and for all, who, in actual fact, were they? So Liesel's like, who are they? What are they talking about? Who are they? What have they done with her? Who are they? Who is he talking about? What do we say about her mom? That she's communist. So who are they? Yeah, the Nazis. What have they done with her? Okay, Liesel doesn't know that though. Okay, she's just questioning like, who are they and what would anybody be doing with my mom? Okay. So page 97, dead letters. I'm going to read this section, then I might have you guys just read a few pages on your own. Flash forward to the basement, September 1943. Okay, so we're moving ahead 3 years in this little piece. A 14-year-old girl is writing in a small, dark-covered book. She is bony but strong and has seen many things. Papa sits with the accordion at his feet. He says, You know, Liesel, I nearly wrote you a reply and signed your mother's name. He stretches his leg where the plaster used to be, but I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself. Several times through the remainder of January and the entirety of February 1940, when Liesel searched the mailbox for a reply to her letter, it clearly broke her foster father's heart. I'm sorry, he would tell her. Not today, huh? In hindsight, she saw that the whole exercise had been pointless. Had her mother been in a position to do so, she would have already made contact with the foster care people or directly with the girl or the Hubermans, but there had been nothing. To lend insult to injury, in mid-February, Liesel was given a letter from another ironing customer, the Felfervers, from Heidstrasse. The pair of them stood with great tallness in the doorway, giving her a melancholic regard. For your mama, the man said, handing her the envelope. Tell her we're sorry. Tell her we're sorry. That was not a good night in the Huberman residence. Even when Liesel retreated to the basement to write her 5th letter to her mother, all but the first one yet to be sent, she could hear Rosa swearing and carrying on about the Fallherver, Arschlocker, and the lousy Ernst Vogel. Translation, they should all piss fire for a month. So she heard her call out, they should all piss fire for a month. Liesel wrote. When her birthday came around, there was no gift. There was no gift because there was no money. At the time, Papa was out of tobacco. I told you, Mama pointed a finger at him, I told you not to give her both books at Christmas. But no, did you listen? Of course not. I know. He turned quietly to the girl. I'm sorry, Liesel, we just can't afford it. Liesel didn't mind. She didn't whine or moan or stamp her feet. She simply swallowed the disappointment and decided on one calculated risk, a present from herself. She would gather all the accrued letters to her mother, stuff them into an envelope, and use just a tiny portion of the washing and ironing money to mail it. Then, of course, she would have to take a Vaschen, most likely to the kitchen, and she would not make a sound. 3 days later, the plan came to fruition. Some of it's missing. Mama counted the money a fourth time. We Lisa over at the stove. It was warm there, and it cooked the fast flow of her blood. What happened, Liesel? She lied. They must have given me less than usual. Did you count it? She broke. I spent it, Mama. Rosa came closer. This was not a good sign. So she took a little bit of the money to send her letters to her mom. Okay? This was not a good sign. She was very close to the wooden spoons. You what? Before she could answer, the wooden spoon came down on Liesel Memmiger's body like the gate of God. Red marks like footprints, and they burned. From the floor, when it was over, the girl actually looked up and explained. There was pulse and yellow light all together. Her eyes blinked. I mailed my letters. What came to her then was the dustiness of the floor, the feeling that her clothes were more next to her than on her, and the sudden realization that this would all be for nothing, that her mother would never write back, and she would never see her again. The reality of this gave her a second Vaschen. It stung her, and it did not stop for many minutes. Above her, Rosa appeared to be smudged, but she soon clarified her cardboard face loomed closer. Dejected, she stood there in all her plumpness, holding the wooden spoon at her side like a club. She reached down and leaked a little. I'm sorry, Liesel. Why is she sorry? Okay, she did steal the money to mail the letters. She beat her because that's what she told her she would do. She's not sorry for beating her. Okay? Yeah, she's saying sorry because she's saying sorry about her mom. Okay, she was gonna beat her if she took the money. She did. She did exactly what she was going to do. But she then is apologizing because of the fact that she knows that her mom's not going to write her back. Okay? She's sending these letters. It's like this emptiness inside. Okay? Liesel knew her well enough to understand that it was not for the hiding. So she's saying, like, Liesel knows she's not saying sorry for getting beat, the hiding, which is getting beat. Okay? She knows that she was sorry for the fact that she would never see her mother again. The red marks grew larger in patches on her skin as she lay there in the dust and the dirt and the dim light. Her breathing calmed, and a stray yellow tear trickled down her face. She could feel herself against the floor, a forearm, a knee, an elbow, a cheek, a calf muscle. The floor was cold, especially against her cheek, but she was unable to move. She would never see her mother again. For nearly an hour she remained spread out under the kitchen table till Papa came home and played the accordion. Only then did she sit up and start to recover. When she wrote about that night, she held no animosity toward Rosa Huberman at all, or toward her mother for that matter. To her, they were only victims of circumstance. The only thought that continually recurred was the yellow tear. Had it been dark, she realized that tear would have been black. But it was black, she told herself. No matter how many times she tried to imagine that scene with the yellow light that she knew had been there, she had to struggle to visualize it. She was beaten in the dark, and she had remained there on a cold, dark kitchen floor. Even Papa's music was the color of darkness. Even Papa's music. The strange thing was that she was vaguely comforted by that thought, rather than distressed by it. The dark, the light, what was the difference? Nightmares had reinforced themselves in each as the book thief began to truly understand how things were and how they would always be. If nothing else, she could prepare herself. Perhaps that's why, on the Führer's birthday, when the answer to the question of her mother's suffering showed itself completely, she was able to react, despite her perplexity and her rage. Liesel Memmiger was ready. Happy birthday, Herr Hitler. Many happy returns. So in this next